The dramatic scene in the Exodus is something which has a strange, familiar tone. Here we have the wayward people of Israel going back to its comfort zone. The tangible, the palpable. Hear, Israel, are your gods that brought you out from the land of Egypt. The sacred calf. Moses had been in ecstatic mode. He had received the 10 Commandments on the Holy Mount, and this is what happened in his absence. It is a pattern that we see all over the world. When the father of the family, when the parish priest, when the abbot, when the bishop is absent for a long time, things go wrong. The pastor, when he's not there, cannot see what's going on and cannot have influence over the people that he does not interact with. There's no fault, of course, in the case of Moses, but it is something that reminds us, as does St. Paul when writing to Timothy in these 7 readings that we will have now from the pastorals, how the pastor, the bishop, is to oversee. Episkopos, he looks over, he is the overlooker. He has to oversee and in some way orientate, but he cannot do so if he's not there. Timothy was young. He was the first bishop at Ephesus. Titus was the first bishop there in Crete, and these were people who would form. But one forms by loving, one forms by being with. One influences through having influence over the will, and the will is conquered by love. We love into being those that we wish to influence. The way in which the soul of man is fragile is seen in this drama, in the Exodus, but also the way in which that soul can come back into harmony with the will of God is seen in the same story, as is seen in the powerful cry from the heart that we find in Psalm 50, which this day will be sung, the psalm which comes every Friday at morning prayer and which echoes through the century, coming from the depth of wounded man wanting to return to grace. Returning to grace, isn't that the theme too of this gospel within the gospel, which is the center of the 15th chapter of Luke? Here we have, first of all, the situation of a coin. Well, the coin loses itself through no fault of its own. Someone else is negligent, and the coin then has to be found by someone else. The sheep is lost because it doesn't know any better, and so it has to be found by someone who knows better. The prodigal son is lost through a free choice, and only the author of that free choice can put it right, and so he has to come back, and he does come back with a vengeance. And indeed there is more warmth in the encounter then with the good father than there is between the father and the son who has stayed put. As we say, one stayed, the other strayed. But there is warmth in the catapulting, and this embrace. We notice that the father doesn't let him even finish his speech. He interrupts him, and he also observes him at a distance, so he's going out every day to see if he's coming back, when he was still a long way off. There is a joy in pastoral ministry. There is a joy in seeing the tears of reconciliation, of bringing souls back from a journey a long way away. the bishop, the priest have that power. The story is told, and it is true, of St. John Paul II, who one day saw this tramp lurking around in the Vatican area and approached him wanting to know what he was doing there. And it turned out that he was actually a fallen priest. He'd abandoned the ministry years ago, and so the Spirit put on the heart of the saintly Pope to get through to his priestly heart. And what did he do? He asked this gentleman in his shabby clothes, would he hear his confession? And so this man, who was once ordained and therefore a priest forever, heard the confession of the Holy Pontiff, and in so doing he was touched by a grace of return, and came back with a vengeance, like the prodigal son, to the embrace of the Father. And because the Holy Father, the Pope, had the power to dispense and all the faculties of dispensation, it was able to be healed immediately. And so this priest came back on track and was where he should be, at the service of the people of God. Some years ago, I was in a situation where there were big troubles in the monastery I was in. It was in Ireland, and somebody advised me to be moved to another monastery, and so I ended up in 1995 very quickly moved to the French community near Siena in Sant-Antimo, and I remember how there was warmth in the air which was hugely healing, and there was a familiarity in the incense and in the Gregorian chant and the liturgy which somehow rang home. This was the true comfort zone. There is safety here. It is sufficient to say yes if they say yes. And the word came through that I was reçu, I was received. And so all I had to do was accept and collaborate, accept and collaborate. And I knew that at that high altar, if I accepted and collaborated, then there would be eventually the grace of ordination, which would change forever, all time. There, the human and the divine are intertwined, for the prior was a pastor of souls, and his words by letter were powerful words. He said the right thing at the right time, and I knew here there was a man of God, but he cared. And one word which he wrote has remained with me forever. It was this, indicating the advantages of remaining in the Norbertine life, that the liturgy, in French he said, cela donne une grande sérénité. That gives a great serenity. That is the life of rhythmic praise, the life of the bell calling back to base, and the solemn tone of the liturgy, bathed in incense, gives great serenity, because it is anchored in the Blessed Trinity. He was pointing out that that is a huge advantage compared with other forms of life. And so that word, coming from the Holy Spirit through him, talked to my heart. A word can influence. If it's coming from a letter, from a person who cares. Pastoral care is personal. And a bishop has to be personal. A candidate will pick up straight away whether a bishop cares. One cannot be a good pastor of souls if one is only a good administrator. One has to love souls into being. And in that sense, Moses, coming down from the Mount of Ecstasy, had to handle directly the nitty-gritty of people going away. A bishop, a priest, has to handle the nitty-gritty of people going away. And he can only call them if he loves them. And they need to feel that. Giving them time and attention, not treating them as cases, but as individuals with a unique history, going back in time and going forward in eternity, for we have power over the eternity of another person, just as the prior of Sant-Antimo on that day had power by the right word in a letter to say what the Holy Spirit was trying to say through him. And then, arriving there, I was moved, and I knew there is safety here. Be carried by this grace, and you will be safe. The Lord blesses a place where there is authenticity, where he is honoured, and where there is true teaching. If we look around over the Catholic world, we ask, where does the Lord send vocations? Where does he not? Numbers also speak without a word. So, I leave you with this little meditation which I wrote there under the impulse of warmth, both human and divine. Here is home, and in this world, reçu, received, I knew I was being received by the Good Shepherd, Jesus Christ, who was saying, stay put, and I'll do the rest. Reçu. Lines written after being received into the abbey in Italy. Oh, sorrow evermore, and nevermore to be alone here held. I am where love can in a fond embrace, as once before, my calmed soul enlace. I hear above this altar where we'll meet a gentle breeze, all of a presence made. I hear again upon the tranquil night what no eye sees. For in one word is heard an end of pain. O Master, I will come, and thee ere long hold o'er the world mid echoes of fair tune, and in the morrows of this ancient song I will hold well the rays of this last boon. For love has called me here, and I shall stay until one fondness lost has passed away.